own house at Zarahemla to rest. I just love that little spot where it's like every so often he just took a little break, rejuvenated, went again. There is a good lesson right there.
Yeah, President
Chapter 8,
Nelson
verse
doesn't
1.
take naps, but Alma did. And he has
And
a
President
book.
Kimball did too.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's fine. You can either be a non-napper or a napper. Are you a napper?
I can't.
I totally am.
Okay, see? That's what happens. I try, I get all cozy, and then
I'm Alma.
my brain just
You
starts going
are
a
President Nelson.
million miles a minute.
Okay, cooler in just a second, because then it says, nevertheless, in verse 11, they still hardened their hearts.
Oh,
And-
that had to have
and-
been so hard.
Well, didn't want to hear him. Right. Where
Yeah.
you almost like,
I'm doing everything you said to do. I'm praying. I'm laboring. I'm giving everything I have. I'm asking for the Spirit to be part of this situation. And
nothing. And it's like, that is so frustrating, particularly if you are comparing it to another situation, which he might do with his own situations, right? He's comparing it to what happened in Melech. And sometimes we might do that as parents and friends, and we might see, like,
yeah,
oh,
especially
look
in
at,
relationships.
yeah, look at that
that
person
happens.
turning around. And why isn't, why isn't my spouse turning around? Or why aren't my kids like responding to these same type of things?
And they didn't just not listen. They weren't nice to him. It tells us when the people had said this and withstood all his words and reviled him and spit upon him and caused that he should be cast out of their city. Like it wasn't a happy
Right, they
situation.
didn't like
And
hold his hand out of the city.
I like too when it tells us in verse 14 that he wasn't just like, well, I did my best, It tells us he was weighed down with sorrow, wading through much tribulation and anguish of soul. Just that thought of him being like the burden of, I'm doing my best in this situation. And I think we kind of all know what that feels like. Just that when you look at it and you think, I love when it says it there for the times when you want to give up, because that kind of is where he is, where he's like, I've given my best to this situation. I've wrestled in prayer. I've done everything I know how to do. And like the easiest thing to do at this point really is to give up. And I love that we're going to see a shift right here of what do you do if that's you? What if you are weighed down with sorrow? What if you have that anguish? What if you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're replaying through that relationship or that thing that just isn't going the way you want it to go? What do you do? And I love that the answer comes right here.
Before the answer, I think it's interesting. I was just sitting here thinking about, and mostly because I had one of these the other night. Like we were laying in bed, Jenny and I just said, I just decided I don't want to be a parent anymore. Because we had a rough, and the response was not equal to I felt like what I was putting in, like the way I felt like I was like, wait, I am trying and I am loving and I am, and then this was the reaction, and crazy for him that it got worse. He goes in and they're like, no, thank you. I pray, I wrestle, and then it gets worse. And you're kind of like, for real?
Yeah.
What is this? And on those days, I think before we get into this answer, when you feel like I want to give up, I just want to say that loving somebody is never a waste.
That's
no
so
matter
good.
what their reaction is, it's never a waste of anything to pour out your heart in loving and helping other people, no matter what their reaction is.
And also walking away. Sometimes just being like, I have to walk away from this situation for a minute and reassess where we are, because I love that he's like, I just got to go for a walk. And sometimes that's the smartest thing to do is just walk
Go
away.
for a walk.
Yeah. Get a change of perspective, spend some time thinking. I've raised all my teenage people, and you're just getting into
Stardiness.
Yeah, that thing. And that is one thing that I have learned is that when they're 3 to 5, when you engage and you teach and you train and you handle that situation and then you move on. And not always so with teenagers, because sometimes you engage and you start getting ready to teach and train, and then things blow up. Yeah, and it's just not the right time. And also, you might not be equipped to handle that situation in the right way in that moment. And a lot of times I did have to walk away and just say, okay, help me be the mom this child needs right now. Give me the language this child needs from me right now. Help me see what they're talking about the way they see it right now. Like, you almost need to take that break and be like, I need help. So when I enter back in, I do it in a way that is actually constructive for this child or this situation, whatever you're in. And that walking away can be powerful.
And so hard because you're like,
I just want to handle this.
I don't want it hanging over my head.
Yeah.
Like I want it solved right now. Like I'm burdened by it.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
But and you want to be the boss of it. You want to be like, I'm the parent. I know what to do. And I learned that each of my kids was significantly different from the others. And what I did with Caleb is not what worked for Garrett. And neither of those two is what worked for Josh. And same with Megan. Like, I had to relearn parenting skills.
And nothing worked for Grace.
For every single child. And the Spirit tutored me for that child, to speak the language of that child and to know what would help that child. And they are all so different. Like, how I engage with Megan is not the same way I engage in conversations with Grace. It just isn't. And it is my testimony. Like, I have such a strong witness of this. The Spirit will teach you how to be the parent that child needs if you pray for that.
And I think you actually see that if you take a zoom out look a little bit at these different cities that Alma goes to. Like, take a look at what he said to the city of Gideon, and take a look at how he approaches Ammonihah and how he approaches Melech.
Yeah.
Like, he approaches them very differently. And it's neat that he is in that place of verse 14 that you read, almost like the anguish of soul opened his heart for the answer. You know, because it's in that place of being weighed down that the tutoring comes.
And it's going to be interesting. I'm going to give away what is about to happen. But as we're looking at this from a parenting point of view, it is interesting that part of Alma's answer for Ammonihah is Amulek. And sometimes that's true as a parent. Sometimes the answer in a situation is actually bringing someone else into the situation. So lots of good parenting lessons in these chapters if you want to go at it.
And how frustrating, because Alma's like so good at what he does.
Yeah.
You know, he's so good at being a teacher that when people stop listening, he's kind of like,
hold on.
I don't know how to, which actually for me has been like tough, because like teaching seminary and institute for so long is like, I get teenagers.
Yeah.
But when I'm not getting mine, I'm like, I'm supposed to be good at this. This is my profession. My profession is teenagers, and I don't do it
just because of that.
But just give yourself permission to no, you are a blessed person. Things are okay. God's still favoring you. He's still looking over you. You're doing great. He actually tells him, I'm the same angel that came and had to kind of
part so much. Who loves
knock you off your feet.
There is a little lesson right there.
So sweet for him to just come.
I love that he's like, I'm your same angel.
Yeah.
Do I have one of those? Please, I need one.
Don't you want to know who this angel is? Remember, every angel has a name and a face. And you just are intrigued.
You just want to meet Alma's angel so bad.
It can't be his dad, because his dad wasn't around, but you kind of wanted it to be his dad. But he says the same angel. Okay, number 2, he says, lift up your head and rejoice. Find some reason. And the reason, he says to Alma, you have reason to rejoice. All's not lost. Your life's going great.
Yeah.
It's
and you just love that. Just lift up your head. Find one good thing. That's what you got to do.
That's a cool thought.
Remember, you're doing okay. Find one good thing. Third thing is, just continue to be faithful.
Right.
He's been faithful. Continue to be faithful. There's just something about that pattern of obedience that opens up the door for miracles. So I love that he's just like, you just keep being faithful. Good things are ahead.
And confidence too. That's the advice is
think how hard it is. He's like, those people who were spitting on you and reviling you and threw you out of the city, go back there.
Yeah. And it's awesome because in 18 he says he goes back speedily. He's like, okay, here we go. That's such a character verse, because you're like, who is that? And then also says though that he goes back
is important.
by another way. Yeah, and say what you want to say about that, because obviously you have a passion
just because
about that
is true. When you go back to your kids in that situation, when you've taken a walk, when you've taken a break, sometimes the Spirit is going to say, okay, go back, but this time we're going to do it a different way. Don't go back the way you did the first time. That did not work. That was not working for you. But let's try it a different way. And I just love the thought of that sometimes that taking a walk, you're going to go back and be like, okay, can I come talk to you about this again? But look, I want to try this a different way. What he wants him to do.
Yeah, it's funny that he says it twice in there. I'm like, why does he want to say that twice? He says, and go preach again to the people of the city. Yea, preach unto them. And he's like, wait, I heard you. Like, it's so funny that he's like, that's what you need to do.
Have you ever taught the youth? And you go in and either, this is what happens with the youth, I feel like, see if this is true. You either go in and knock it out of the park, or you go in and everyone just stares at you like
that was the worst time of my time.
And generally out of 3 months, you'll have 2 knock it out of the park lessons. That is just true. And then you walk out and you're like, I should never teach the youth again. Like, that is not my skill set. I shouldn't ever teach youth. That's what you think to yourself. And so I love that he's like, go back and teach the youth again. And then you're like, no, I can't.
He says, no, preach again.
Go back. This is your talent. This is your calling. This is what you are good at. Go back and do it again. Like, sometimes you just need someone to be like, you can be the dad of a teenage boy. You can.
I had this time where it was so bad. The lesson was so bad. And I was like, no one cares about anything. No one's listening. And we were at like 5 or 10 minutes left. And I was like, okay, we're done. I just want to be done. Like, we're done. And then this one kid after was just like, oh, thanks for letting us out early, but I was really into that. He was like, there were other times when I wished that you would have done that and ended early and you didn't. And I was like, what? I can't even tell. Do something like that. And it makes me sad that they believed in such a small and powerless God.
And you love that in chapter 9, verse 2, when he comes back in again, and he begins to preach unto them, and they began to contend with me, saying, who are you? And in verse 6, and who is God? Like, it's so interesting. And then I love when he says, what kind of God do you have that he doesn't send any more than one man among this people to try and do something? And remember how we have loved looking back and talking about what God can do with one man? So you just love the fact that they are so opposed to the real character of God and who God is,
and how big he is,
and who Alma is, and Amulek, and this one person that is going to come in and be the difference makers. These next couple of chapters are a really great couple of chapters for learning how to be a good companion. Whether that's in your marriage or in a mission companionship, but as you watch Alma and Amulek go back and forth with each other and learn how to work and how to teach together and how to confront problems together, there's just are a lot of really good lessons here about missionary companionships, but really any companionship.
Yeah, and situations too, because I like that Mormon gives you like this preview in verse 31 when he says they're going to be thrown in dungeons and all of these things are going to happen, but God was still there. And I feel like if you're tempted to read, almost like he's like saying, when you read this story, make sure you still see God in the jail, and you still see him in the fire, and you still see him in the rejection, and because this is not a happy ending. Like, it's not at all. And I love that Mormons, like, they were filled with the power of God despite what the circumstances look like.
And you love that when those people enter into and they're like, who is God and who are you? That what is going to happen right now is they are going to remind them who God is and who they are to God. And I love that they're like, even though it may not change their hearts, that's how they're going to enter into that conversation.
And isn't that awesome? We talked about this last week and every other week of our whole lives, that like this is the like such a theme of the Book of Mormon is reminding people who God is. Because once you know who God is, then you want to engage and enter into a relationship with him. In fact,